All right, we are ready to talk Chicago Bears football on the Our Lads Football Network. And for the first time, and I really am excited every time we get an opportunity to talk to a first time analyst on our network. Mark Carman covers the Bears for CHGO Sports, and there's actually a CHGO Sports YouTube channel. We'll have a link in the description area of this video, so you can check that out. Mark, thanks a lot for doing this today.
My pleasure. Appreciate you having me.
Well, again, it's been a while actually since we've had anybody on talking Bears football, so I'm really interested to get your take, and then hopefully this will become a regular thing. First of all, I want to ask you a little bit about CHGO Sports. So I noticed you have the YouTube channel. How long have you been with them for?
I started at the beginning of last season, football season, so it was an outstanding 3-14, fascinating.
Yeah.
You know,
Good debut.
the Bears actually were probably maybe the most entertaining 3-14 team that you could possibly be with everything that was going on.
True.
So we're heading into year 2 here, and CHGO, we do a Daily Bears show, which I'm a part of, and then there's a Cubs show and a Sox show and a Bulls show and a Blackhawks show and all that stuff. So
Okay.
But I'm in the football corner as much as I am a entire sports fan, if you will. But it's great to be on the Bears show with my guys.
How long have you been covering the team for?
Oh, long time. I did 7 years of post-game shows, pre-game too, on WGN Radio with the Dan Hampton and Ed Obradovich. And prior to that, as a reporter, and grew up in Chicago, and first game 1985, Bears down 28-17 at the half. Leslie Frazier with a pick six, and they beat the Buccaneers 38-28 on their way to becoming the best football team in the history of the game, as you well know.
Wow.
So
nice
I've got history. I've got history here.
All right, Mark. So what we're going to do on this first conversation, obviously this time we're about we're still about 2 weeks out almost exactly from the beginning of Bears training camp. So I want to talk to you about camp battles, things of that nature. But first about the team, because you mentioned it was not a great debut for Eberflus last year. What did you think, though, about the job? You watched every game, every minute. Any first-time head coaches, they're always going to make those rookie mistakes, things of that nature. How do you think he handled himself?
I actually think he handled himself great. He did his best to build a culture on a team that wasn't going to win a lot of football games. I was in that locker room every single week. I never saw that team go anywhere close to in the tank as far as their attitude. It was a positive place to be, and I would say that was fairly unique for a team that goes 3-14,
Sure.
right? And they also were subtracting from that team, trading Roquan Smith in the middle of the year, trading Robert Quinn, who was their best guy getting to the quarterback, even though he's having an off year last year and never really got healthy. So he's kind of impossible to judge, right? I mean, there was just such little talent, and but early in the season before they were subtracting, they were a floating around 500 team, and they also went 1-7 in one-score games. So could you point at it and say that a great coach would have won a couple more of those games? Maybe, but I'm fully the book is completely out on Matt Eberflus right now, and I don't see any reason to think he can't do the job. And I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to end up being a Hall of Fame head coach in the NFL.
And Justin Fields, you talk about exciting, and there you go. That's the reason why the Bears were a very exciting team last year, even with a 3-win record. But he's still young. What's the thing he has to do the most? What are they saying? Okay, this is what you have to improve on this year to be a better quarterback.
So it's decision making in the pocket, and more specifically, making quick decisions. Just he didn't have the best offensive line in football. He also didn't have the worst. But what he didn't have was any weapons. So that was the whole point. You get the number 1 overall pick, and you're not going to trade Justin Fields for any of the quarterbacks coming last year, even though Bryce Young reports are right now that he's having a great start to his time in Carolina with minicamp and whatnot. But there's just no way you were going to trade Justin Fields for a 5'10" quarterback who is I guess was a consensus number 1 of the quarterbacks were there, but was not looked at anywhere close to a Peyton Manning or next year's draft when Caleb's coming out, all that stuff. So I look at Fields with a DJ Moore and hopefully a healthy Darnell Mooney and a Chase Claypool who has finally figured out the Bears offense, and an emerging tight end in Cole Kmet with a better offensive line. Used your number 10 overall pick in the first round, trading down one spot and taking Darnell Wright. There's more protection for him. Plus, they signed a free agent and Nate Davis to play right guard. It's setting up for a big jump for Fields in year 3 of his career. If he doesn't make it, then we got a problem.
Okay, so let's talk. I want to ask you about that offensive line. I'm sure there's still going to be some battles going on, even though it does look like there's a set 5. But I know last year, of course, there were just a ton of injuries along the line, and that's always going to be hard, even for any offensive line, let alone an offensive line that is still trying to grow together. And again, you mentioned a couple new faces now this year or so, but the one bright spot was the rookie Braxton Jones. I don't think anybody anticipated the season that he had, so that was a huge get. So he is now going to is he locked in? Is he now the left tackle? Right will play right tackle. Is that how they envision the future?
100%. They believe in Braxton Jones, the 5th round pick out of Southern Utah, who won one game his senior year. But it was super early in training camp last year where he got the opportunity to play left tackle, and it was obvious that the Bears coaching staff was not moving him, that he was there to stay. And they gave him a ton of help, and he's had a huge offseason of trying to get better at anchoring himself and becoming a true dominant left tackle. But there's nothing to not like about this guy. He's awesome to talk to, available every week, puts in the work, is super complimentary of his teammates. And I'm not saying, that he's going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, but I am optimistic for the Bears that he can hold down that spot.
And then taking a look, and you mentioned Davis, and of course Jenkins. First, I got to ask you about Jenkins' health. What's the status there?
Good question. Uncertain. He's had neck issues. He's had back issues. They're asking him to switch positions. Big question mark going into camp. Like who is going to step up and be behind him if Tevin can't stay healthy? And to this point in his career, he hasn't been able to. But he did take a huge leap forward last year's, originally come in as a tackle, moved him to guard. He embraced that. He played well, and then he got hurt. So when he's going well, though, he is one physical, imposing, nasty dude. So it's a huge key to that offensive line that Tevin stays healthy, but it's a big question mark at the same time.
Being that's is that the only question mark? Do you think there's any other lineman on that team that has a chance to battle for playing time? No. Okay.
No. They that's one of their the benefits of where they're at right now. They know who their 5 are, like you said, and they have some depth. Lucas Patrick was brought in there to be a starter. He got hurt, couldn't stay on the field, and never distinguished himself in his first year on a 2-year deal. So now he's a backup interior guy. And then Ja'Tyre Carter was a late-round pick who hasn't seen the field, but he's still lingering around. So he's going to have a spot on this roster. But they're very solid with the 5, and I would say even Lucas has a 6. But after that, those will be your training camp battles for who will be the backups.
Were you surprised at all that the team, 4th round is a position where you expect some contributions? Were you surprised at all that they went with a running back with some of the other needs they had, considering they did bring in Foreman, Herbert? A lot of people, including me, I believe he's got just an incredible amount of ability. If he would just now maybe get the opportunity, maybe stay healthy, be the number 1 guy. Were you surprised at all they made that pick, or do you think that was just too good to pass up? And Rashawn Johnson is a running back that you think that we're going to hear a lot of?
I absolutely was surprised by that pick because this is a team that has a bunch of needs, and you went out and you signed Foreman, and Khalil's there, and Treston Ebner's there, and they went out and signed Travis Homer. I mean, that room is stocked, but they love Roschon, and they're trying to make a home run swing in the 4th round for a guy who played behind Bijan Robinson, and they love him in the locker room, and that stood out already. So we'll see, and he's definitely going to be a special teams guy at bare minimum. But maybe he'll get a bunch of snaps. But to answer your question, I was surprised by that pick.
So then let's talk about Herbert, because I'm sure there's maybe even fantasy fans out there that are really interested in this particular player. Again, I know I am. I think that if he's given that opportunity, I think he's going to hit a home run. What do you think? What does he have to do to improve his overall game to be the number one running back?
So fantasy-wise, I mean, this is a guy who led the league in yards per carry last year at 5.7. I mean, that's pretty impressive stat, right?
Yep.
And he's got phenomenal vision, and he's unique in that he's just patient when he has the ball in his hands, and he kind of lets the play develop, and he's able to hit the hole in a unique way. And I like watching him play because it's just different. He's not really trying to bully you over. He's picking in his spot, and he's not a burner either. But he's just he's crafty, and he knows how to do it. But from a fantasy standpoint, I don't think you can do it because how much is Foreman going to get the football?
Yeah.
How much is Roschon going to be in there? You're taking a big swing. I think he's going to be the guy, but I'm not confident in that. Foreman was phenomenal last year in the second half of the season for Carolina.
Yep.
I mean, he was every bit of a number one running back. So I mean, there's just legit competition in that room.
Okay. As far as the depth at wide receiver, you mentioned the top three guys. So, and Velus Jones, you would imagine, especially since he has kick return ability, is still in the mix. And then they drafted Tyler Scott in round 4. Are those like the 5 guys that are like definites, or the 2 bench guys, the 4 and 5, Scott, Jones, and then there's a battle? Or do you think there's a battle after the top 3 and anybody can make it?
So the receiver room's very interesting to me. First of all, you've got DJ Moore as your one. That's obviously clear cut. But after that, Darnell Mooney's coming back from a major ankle injury. He's got screws in that ankle still. Is he going to be healthy? I don't know. He's been out of the field. He says he's healthy, but until we see it, okay. Chase Claypool came over here and threw a tantrum on the sidelines, and Justin Fields spoke negatively of anyone but talked about Claypool, that we can't have that. And now in the offseason this year, it's like he's very proud of where Chase is at. But Chase Claypool's got a ton to prove in Chicago that he was worthy of that second-round pick, or that he even deserves to be on the football team, really. And Velus, he got taken off a punt return because he couldn't catch the football, and he cost him, a game early in the season against the Giants with a late fumble. That would have at least given him an opportunity to go down and score and send the game in overtime. So, I mean, the Bears have re-signed Dante Pettis on a 1-year deal, who's got good chemistry with Fields. They also brought back Equinemius St. Brown on a 1-year deal, who's a very good blocking wide receiver, which is not the number one thing you want. But when you're the Bears and you have Fields and all the running room talent,
sure,
that does matter. So Velus is not even though he was a 3rd-round pick last year, he is not a guarantee to make this roster.
Okay.
So, and Dante is a better, he stepped in as a punt returner after Velus failed last year, and he absolutely held down that role. So can Velus beat him out for that? I don't know. He'd have to come a long way. So when you're looking for surprise training camp cuts, Velus is definitely somebody that could be in that category. I don't think the Bears want to cut him, but someone is going to have to go. They're not going to. I wouldn't think they're going to keep 6 or even 7 guys there. So if it's at 6, then Velus has to beat out Brown and/or Pettis, and so then you're cutting a guy with a guaranteed contract.
And as far as the rookies, Scott, obviously the 4th
I didn't even
rounder.
mention Scott. Yeah, right. So I'm instantly putting Tyler Scott on the practice squad, and he's a straight burner, which they could use. So that's another guy that these are the training camp battles that'll be really worth watching. And I mean, a lot of guys have a lot to prove there to firmly establish that they're on this roster.
Yeah, and I mentioned this the other day. When you get into these camp battles, especially in preseason games, when it comes to the kick return job, wide receivers trying to make the team, the one thing that they have to do, and I mentioned this because of Aaron Cruikshank, the one thing they have to do is make plays. And if a guy like Cruikshank can score 2 touchdowns in the preseason on returns, he's going to make it awfully tough for them to potentially expose him on the practice squad. So that's because I know I'm a Rutgers fan. I grew up in New Jersey. I know how dangerous he is, but I also know that it's pretty much limited. Not that he can't make a few plays with his hands, but overall, that's going to be his calling card. Other than that, yeah, that's going to be interesting. But that's what you have to do if you're a guy like Cruikshank. You got to make plays in the preseason.
No doubt, you got to distinguish yourself somehow, some way. And if Tyler Scott walked down the street, he'd have no idea he was in the NFL. I mean, he looks like the most regular dude of all time.
Okay.
But when you can run a 4.240, you could have an impact on that field. So, but they do have the luxury of perhaps putting him on the practice squad. But it's a 4th-round pick.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay. Now, defensively, this was a position that went through an awful lot of movement last year, and it just it looks so different. You take a look at the depth chart, the Ourlads depth chart, as far as some of the, you mentioned one of them, of course, Quinn, an extra couple of them that got dealt in the middle of the season last season. So right now, who's the leader? Who's the leader on defense right now?
So if we're looking for a leader on defense, you're going to go to Eddie Jackson,
Okay.
who has been here the longest, going into his 7th year, had a great bounce back season last year. That if you're looking for things to underline that Matt Eberflus did, Eddie was horrible in his final year with Nagy, and Flus came in and he proved a lot to him and to Alan Williams, and he became a bona fide leader on that defense. And guys look up to Eddie for sure. So I mean that's your easier or at least most distinguished bear in the room. Tremaine Edmonds coming over here from Buffalo, with a big time contract, is going to have a large voice in that room too. I mean, the Bears let Roquan go, traded Roquan, didn't want to pay him the money, but they paid Edmonds. So it caught a lot of people by surprise, caught me by surprise. But this is a guy in his prime and premium talent, even though it's at a off the ball linebacker position. I don't get so much into that. I like good players. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
So the Bears also had a ton of cap money, and so they basically front loaded his contract. So when it comes time to have to pay Fields, and they're still sitting on the most cap room of anyone in the NFL, and they'll have a ton next year to bring in the edge guys that they're missing. So, but long-winded answer, the leader of that defense right now is Eddie Jackson.
Okay, so you mentioned Edmonds. They also bring in TJ Edwards. So a couple of veterans there who have had a pretty insane number of tackles between the two of them over the last several years. Sanborn, is he the interesting one? Does he potentially have a bright future?
So I'm a huge Jack Sanborn guy. This is an undrafted free agent out of Wisconsin, and there's just certain guys on a football field that they play faster than their tape. They're not afraid to run into you at full speed. They'll get everything they possibly can out of their athletic ability, and that's what Jack Sanborn did. When Roquan got traded, he got a ton of opportunity, and he absolutely took advantage of it. Now he got hurt, and he's supposedly going to be, healthy come training camp, but he sat out mini camp. But Sanborn's one of those guys that you want on your football team. So he's definitely their 3rd linebacker, and they also drafted Noah Sewell in the 5th round, who they like. So there's some competition there. But Sanborn was one of the better stories of the 2022 Chicago Bears, and I like where he's headed in his NFL career.
Okay, let's talk about the secondary then, because last year, take a look at it. Actually, last year and this year, there were 3 DBs that were taken in round 2. So you have Stevenson this year, Gordon and Brisker last year. So how did the rookies do last year, Brisker and Gordon? What do they have to do to improve?
So, there's a lot going on there. One, Brisker gets just rave reviews left and right, and I love him because he's big and he's physical and he can run, and his attitude, all of it. And he's got that want to be great gene that you can feel coming off of him when you talk to him. However, Brisker, did not finish the year and is coming off of, I think, a fairly significant concussion, which,
Okay.
you're playing safety in the NFL. That to me, that's scary. What his long term will be. And Gordon wants to play outside, but the Bears like him as a slot corner. So I think he's got a little bit of extra motivation too, because here comes a second round pick in Tyreek Stevenson that the Bears love, more size than Gordon, and they're immediately playing him outside, which is where Gordon would like to be.
Okay.
So there's there's a little bit of competition in there. I'm sure everybody's going to play nice in the sandbox, but it's just interesting that Stevenson is above him. And the Bears were sitting there dying for any help for Justin Fields last year, and the first two picks by GM Ryan Poles were two defensive guys in Gordon and Brisker, which caught a lot of people off guard. And I at the time I said I liked it because, rather than taking the 8th offensive lineman, because there had been a run on lineman before they picked, or the 6th wide receiver, he's picking what he thought was the top corner or the top safety or the second corner or the second safety. And the Bears needed players all over the field. So I liked it. But then, Gordon, he's okay. I was expecting more. Then you see like a guy like George Pickett's making an impact in Pittsburgh, and the Bears are dying for wide receiver help. It doesn't necessarily, and then you end up trading a second round pick for Chase Claypool. Like,
yeah,
not perfect right now. There were some things, if Ryan Poles could rewind time there, I think there's some things he would do differently. I'm not saying, by the way, that he still wouldn't draft Gordon and Brisker, but I'd like to know the answer to that. We'd have to get him on the old lie detector test.
Let's talk about by the way, as far as battles, camp battles, and there were actually 3 rookies drafted in the secondary, Williamson and Smith, as well as Stevenson. So are there some interesting battles we need to keep an eye on there? Especially if Brisker doesn't play early in the season.
No, I don't think so. I mean, that would be another backup situation. Like, does Williamson make Kendall Vildor, a guy who's got a $3 million contract? Do they get rid of a veteran backup? Josh Blackwell had a great year on special teams last year. I doubt that he gets cut because he's, he can do a lot of things for him. But those are the battles there. I think Stevenson's going to be your starter, and Jalen Johnson, who's just signed with a new agent today and is working on, will there be a contract extension there? That's Bears have a lot of money to spend. I would think that would be something they'd want to get done. But those 3, Johnson, Stevenson, and Gordon are going to be your 3 corners, and then the rest will fill in. I think Williamson's going to be a practice squad guy.
Okay. By the way, do you think Johnson, given the right contract offer, do you think the Bears should bring him back long term?
I do. I absolutely do. Number 1 cornerbacks don't grow on trees. The Bears are, like everybody else in the NFL, are huge on takeaways. He hasn't done that a ton, but he's absolutely a number 1 corner, and I don't think you have to break the bank to sign him. He wants to be here. So to me, it makes a whole lot of sense to bring him back.
All right. And then up front, this is really where you notice a lot of changes from the Bears over the last several years, especially, up front, on the defensive line, the pass rush, and so forth. I guess that is the question. Where does the pass rush come from right now?
Me and you.
Oh, no, that's not good.
Yeah, no, it's not good. So DeMarcus Walker had 7 sacks last year. That's your most proven guy on the team right now.
Yeah.
Jervon Dexter, 2nd round pick, 53 overall. Big dude, looks the part, but at Florida, he was 6 seconds late getting off the ball. Now, they played a different scheme than what he'll be playing in Chicago, and he's got a lot of want, and the Bears love him. But that's, asking a lot out of a rookie to make an instant impact. Zach Pickens, they're asking a ton from there. Justin Jones is just, standard going to be a solid vet and going to help guys along. But they, admittedly, the Bears have not addressed this position. So it's do you go out and sign Yannick Ngakoue, who's still out there? Do you go get Justin Houston, who's 34 years old but is still productive? But then you're taking snaps away from guys like Travis Gibson, who's going in his 4th year. Dominic Robinson's going to his 2nd year. You're not trying to win the Super Bowl this year. So do you let young guys develop? Do you let Dexter develop? Do you let Pickens develop and not clog it up? I expect them to add at least one player because, if Fields goes big this year and the offense takes off,
Sure.
if the defense is just middle of the road, then the Bears are going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, that's the obvious big deal you look at with this depth chart. Because if you're already looking at next year's draft, is that already by far the biggest need is getting a pass rusher, getting pass rushers?
Yes. Last time I checked, they don't grow on trees.
No.
So, but they absolutely know that, this is the money that they're going to be spending. This is the draft capital they're going to be using. They've got their own number 1 draft pick next year. They've got Carolina's pick. Things go real south for Fields, then maybe you're in the quarterback derby, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. Yeah. He's just too talented.
Yeah.
But they said over and over again that we can't fix everything in 1 year.
Yep.
And they've done a lot, and they have lived up to those words. They have not fixed everything. The defensive line, edge rusher specifically, is a major need.
Couple more things before I let you go. Breakout player on offense. Somebody to keep an eye on during camp and the preseason.
Great question. Hopefully they'll have one. I'm going to go off the board and just say that Tyler Scott somehow can crawl his way in there, because I'm not sure about Mooney's health. I'm not sure that Chase Claypool could stay healthy either. I think there's going to be some opportunity there. So, and I liked what I saw in small doses in minicamp.
Okay.
So
I like it.
I will take Tyler Scott.
And how about on defense? Do you have a breakout candidate on defense?
So I'm going to take one of the edge guys and flipping a coin. Travis Gibson, Dominic Robinson. Dom Rod's had a huge offseason. But
who was that?
Dominic Robinson.
He had a huge offseason?
Yeah. Well, he's talking with a lot of confidence in every article that I'm seeing. He's been doing some, intense workouts and whatnot. But I'm going to take Travis Gibson, because when there were players around him, Gibson was effective, and he should be that much better this year going into his 4th year. Travis has got great attitude, and there's some talent there for sure. So with more help up front with some of the rookies, I'll take Travis Gibson.
And then special teams, we mentioned the kick return game. So Santos, good for him. He had a really nice year. I mean, what did he have? 4 or 5 from 50 plus? And the only thing was, over his time, 3 years with Chicago, he's had 4 misses from 40 to 49. But overall, 77 out of 85 in 3 years ain't bad.
No, he's been solid. He struggled with extra points last year. I think he missed 5 of them.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a weird that was going on. He switched where he's kicking towards the end. He switched pass marks. But Cairo, he answered the kicking problem that had happened after they let Robbie Gould go and Cody Parkey and the double dunk and all of that. But he's just so tiny, right? He's like 5'6", and you're just wondering, are you going to be able to keep that flexibility to keep on hitting 50 yards when you are standing 5'6"? But he's there. I don't think that's going to be any change coming, at least not this year.
Punter,
Robbie,
though.
Yeah, Robbie Gould wants to come back here bad, but I don't think that's happening.
Yeah. Might be too late for that. And Trenton Gill, so is he going to have a battle with Anderson at camp? Because as a 7th-round pick, it wasn't like he had a great year. Didn't look like it statistically.
But they like Gil,
Okay.
and I don't. That's interesting. I didn't even realize the stats didn't come out well. He punted fine.
Okay.
He's not going anywhere. They use a draft pick on him. Um, they the special teams coach Richard Hightower can't say enough good things about Trenton Gill. So I don't anticipate any change there.
Mark, fans, they're going to go to whether it's they're in Chicago. Obviously, they can tune in on the radio. You've got the YouTube channel. So your coverage of the Bears, how often? How do they find you?
So we do a daily show on CHGO at noon. So if you subscribe on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to find us, baby. We go every day at noon, Monday through Friday, and then of course pre and post games and all that stuff. And we do Bears After Dark also a couple nights a week during the season. So
very cool.
Can't get enough Bears content.
Hey, I mean, we're here. A couple of weeks from now, camp begins. Everybody's getting psyched. And I appreciate your time, Mark. And again, hopefully we'll get the opportunity to talk to you before the season begins, because there's still a few months away before that happens. So again, though, I really appreciate you taking your time to talk to us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks, Mark.